Welcome to Hippie TV news and stuff for the weekend of June 15th. Brought to you by WorldwideHippies.com, Citizen Journalist Exchange, part of the Common Projects Network. I am Winston Smith. Abuse and psychiatry in the U.S.? You must be crazy. Texas legalizes whore hunting. If you build a burger, the Clintons will come. Pardon Snowden, pardon me. Cheryl Tchida is not Mother of the Year. Todd Rundgren, the Hippies, Jim Jones. Update on Fukushima, the doc is in, asshole of the week, and more. Top story. Corporate media and the U.S. government say it's safe to eat fish from Japan. They have a message for the American eater. Stop worrying about the health effects of eating fish. Officials decided it's once again safe to stock the produce aisles with foods from parts of Japan that were affected by Fukushima. Well, CNN, MSNBC, the New York Times, LA Times, and virtually all corporate-owned media in the United States reported last week that water leaking from a storage tank at Japan's Fukushima power plant was not radioactive as first reported. That the cleanup and the contamination was under control and moving forward faster than previously reported, and the reactors were being covered and sealed. That scientists studying fish contaminated by radiation from Fukushima say that the radioactivity is far too low to cause any health concerns for seafood lovers. CNN said for days last week, and I'm quoting here, "Go ahead, order the sushi." Well, let me say right here.
Don't piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
Here is a little bit of Winston Smith's truth. From reports outside of the U.S. on the same days that the other reports were being reported. For Borneo, the Borneo Post, Tokyo Electric Power Company said that it has detected increasingly large amounts of radioactive cesium in groundwater from the Fukushima Daiichi plant. The Hong Kong Standard, the operator of Japan's Fukushima Daiichi nuclear power plant, admitted it had found yet another leak of radioactive water. The Japan Times wrote, 27 more miners with thyroid cancer added to an ongoing study of the impact of radiation on residents after the Fukushima atomic power plant disaster. RT News reported, researchers have discovered that the Fukushima nuclear disaster had far-reaching health effects more drastic than previously thought. Young children born on the United States West Coast are 28% more likely to develop congenital hyperthyroidism. Researchers from a New York-based Radiation and Health Project wrote in a study published in the Open Journal of Pediatrics, Fukushima fallout has appeared to affect all areas of the United States. Americans often doubted that the radiation from the meltdown would affect the U.S. West Coast. They went on to say, but the latest research sheds light on an alarming scientific data that indicates otherwise. About the covering and the containment of the plant, they actually covered it with a tarp. Like I said,
piss down my back and tell me it's raining.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message. I love you. Now, back to our show.
Abuse of psychiatry in the United States far more extensive than occurred in the Soviet Union. This is from WarrenContext.com. In a new report in the British Psychological Society's Division of Clinical Psychology, along with a majority of other European mental experts, have expressed profound criticism of the way in which psychiatrist diagnoses are being applied to patients in the United States. In the Soviet Union, psychiatry became a tool of political oppression used to silence political dissent. In the United States, psychiatry operates in the service of the pharmaceutical industry, leading to antipsychotic drugs having become the top-selling class of drugs. In what seems to be indicative of institutionalized fraud, linking psychiatry, the pharmaceutical industry, and the government, there has been a five-fold increase in prescribing of antipsychotic drugs. Those drugs are being administered to children between the ages of 2 and 17. Many of these children are being drugged even when their so-called providers are fully aware that their problems are social, not psychiatric. For instance, from suffering the effects of poverty or family problems. In other words, children who are the victims of the ills of society are being given emotional painkiller drugs, those drugs given to them to dull their capacity to have any feelings, and not just painful feelings. Frequently, they cause what becomes a cascade of unintended effects, effects which then get treated by additional drugs. Critics are also charging that the newest edition of the American Psychiatry Association's Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders has been written with the aid of pharmaceutical industry. Changes in terms and reclassifying of illnesses to promote the latest drugs. Yes, in America, millions of children are now being drugged by a system of care that has been corrupted by the interests of insane profits. This from no place else but Texas. A Texas jury has acquitted a man accused of murdering an escort he found on Craigslist after she refused to have sex with him. Ezekiel Gilbert admitted to shooting 23-year-old Leorna Ivy Fargo, but the jury found him not guilty anyway. If he'd been convicted, Gilbert could have faced life in prison. After leaving the courtroom, Gilbert thanked the state district judge, Mary Robin, and the jury for being able to give him a second chance to get pussy from Craigslist. Gilbert testified that he had found Fargo's escort ad on Craigslist and believed sex was included in her fee. When she arrived at his house, she hung around for around 20 minutes and then left. Gilbert's lawyer claimed that he was justified in running after Fargo and shooting her because he was trying to retrieve stolen property, that being the $150 fee he paid her for her pussy. Texas law allows people to use deadly force to recover property during a nighttime theft. People in Texas fucking amaze me. Pardon Edward Snowden? Pardon me. Edward Snowden is a national hero and should be immediately issued a full, free, and absolute pardon for any crimes he has committed or may have committed related to blowing the whistle on secret NSA surveillance programs. An online White House petition calling for his pardon website said last week. Well, Winston Smith has a problem with this. First, you don't ask guilty for forgiveness. Never, never, never. Asking the president for a pardon does just that. Second, you cannot pardon somebody when they have not broken the law. Senate Select Committee on Intelligence Chairwoman Dianne Feinstein have said that Snowden should be prosecuted. Really? Dianne Feinstein? She's stating her own bloomers, worrying about her role in undermining the Constitution and breaking the law to do so. She's worried about it being brought out into the cleansing light of day. Snowden, 29, has not even been charged with a crime at this juncture, but Dianne Feinstein is shooting off her big corrupt mouth and the media is all too happy to give her FaceTime. For once, just once, I would love to hear a reporter respond back to Dianne Feinstein, "Bitch, you ain't never even read the Constitution. Shut the fuck up and get your own lawyer." Lastly, let's be grown-ups for once. America is long past the time when petitions did any good. Nothing but revolution will bring justice to the American people. The sooner we get on with it, the better.
We interrupt our program to bring you this important message. Now, back to our show.
You know, people often ask me, Winston, how do you keep such a truly enlightened, insightful, transcendental, and almost visionary perspective on world events? My answer is always the same. Almost visionary? What do you mean almost visionary? Anyway, here with some transcending 2020 insight is my good friend, the Doc.
What's up, Doc?
Well, hippies, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, hippies and straights around the world, thank you, Winston, for the kind introduction. The pearls and panties of the mid-screen press and the progressive blogosphere have been twisted into absolute knots recently over the news that President Lobar authorized the NSA to surveil user electronic communications, which he did, in reauthorizing a policy that had been in place since about 2005. I recall there was some other guy president then. We called him the Chimperor. The metastasization of security state has been a steady and inevitable fact for more than a decade now. In Woody's always humble opinion, the effect, finally, of the terror acts of 9/11 has been to legitimize the official viewpoint that every citizen, every person, no matter who you are, is always a suspect of something. President Lobar is no more guilty of encouraging or acting upon this epistemic tendency than has been any other president or occupant of the office since the middle of the 19th century about. I'm no defender of President Lobar, you all know that. But all he's doing is showing us that he's really no different than anyone else in that position. He's doing what he's told. The only difference I see is kind of chromatic. It only bothers you when there's a black guy fronting for the mob. Is that the problem? Modern states like the US, Russia, Europe, and all, they had institutional, internal national security agency, intelligence, and surveillance bureaus from the 1880s onward. It was necessitated by the discovery of the masses by sociologists like Durkheim and Weber. The mass of people qua undifferentiated social factotum was the unexpected and kind of potentially really rogue side effect of the Industrial Revolution. The masses weren't like peasants or the vassals. There were more of them and they were more concentrated. The sociologists and their paymasters, along with the rest of the social scientists, recognized immediately that the threat that the masses posed to established authority was significant, and so everybody immediately dropped everything and went right to work on figuring out ways to regulate the masses without their appearing to do so. This has been the constant telos of the human sciences for about 200 years, and Foucault called it the carceral state. In the US of A, we do it with media. The whole vast panoply of human ideation, imagination, and creativity are condensed into 6 corporate boardrooms. We welcome our jailers gladly, and nightly we're happy to see O'Reilly and or Stewart every night just before we retire. Makes us feel secure. But these folks have taken it only just as far as they were technically able to do so. And that's true of every regime since the Civil War. And that's one of the reasons why people, of course, talk about this technology kind of skeptically, because it always contains the seeds of its own or our frustration and destruction. Whoever expected that the state would not take all available measures to protect itself, even from within? That's just naive. The state functions within a discourse that is mostly immune to human personal appeal anyway. Each of us is only and just 1/307 millionth of the state's problems. You don't have to worry much about what people think if you can pretty well regulate what they think about and the frames they use. Look, Benghazi. And a tornado! Back to you in Hippie Central, Winston.
Thanks, Doc, for all the information you non-surreptitiously disseminate to all the sisters and brothers each week right here on Hippie TV News and Stuff. Mom forces daughter to have sex with men, and it's not a Kennedy. Cheryl Tchida is a pig, a low-life pig. Cheryl Tchida pimped out her 19-year-old daughter who has dwarfism and the mental capacity of a 5-year-old. She pimped her out at various locations during a 6-week period. At those locations, the teen was gang raped by several men. The girl also was impregnated by one of the men. Tchida, who pled guilty to neglect in April, only came forward in August after discovering her daughter was pregnant and couldn't explain it. The girl, who cannot tell time, read, or care for herself, has since been placed in foster care. For pimping out your severely disabled daughter, who has dwarfism and the mental capacity of a 5-year-old, Cheryl Tchida has been sentenced to 6 months in the county workhouse. We'll be right back.
Only good-tasting tuna get to be star-kissed. Good-tasting 100% prime filet.
This is good-tasting tuna.
Get Star-Kissed tuna.
Note the name, Star-Kissed.
In left-wing politics this week,
Bringing home a baby bumblebee. Ouch, it stung me. I'm squishing up the baby bumblebee.
oh, that one's gotta hurt. No, hippies, no! Just say no to Todd Rundgren's death call. Following an investigative piece in the hands of Discover magazine, it has been proven that drum circles can be bad for hippies' health, and participating in one could potentially kill you. The article is based on a case of a New Hampshire woman who fell ill back in December 2009. Hospital tests confirmed that there were traces of anthrax in her system. The anthrax was traced back to drum circles she had partaken in a full week before becoming sick. It was found that several of the drums were made of animal skins harboring, unbeknownst to the joyful percussionists, healthy colonies of anthrax spores. Now, the Center for Disease Control wants to outlaw drum circles. I shit you not. No mention of inspecting animal skins coming into the country. No, no, no. Well, if you want my drum, you're going to have to pry it from my cold, dead hands. Kings without kingdoms? The Bilderbergs. It's that time of the year, folks. By invitation only, a roll call of about 140 luminaries, corporate heads, major politicians, royalty, media mongols, and financial kingpins met behind heavily guarded closed doors to chart the world's course and then translate it into policy. This year, once again, the Clintons arrived early. Hillary and Bill crouched in a black and windowed silver limousine as the paparazzi rioted to get a photo of these two boils on the ass of humanity as they hooked up with pal Henry, blood of the dead children on my hands, Kissinger. The annual Bilderberg event is broadly viewed as a political meeting of the one percenters, through which high society elitists discuss big business and the global economy. The Bilderberg Group wields extraordinary power. Bilderbergers, the cosmopolitan elite, hatch decisions on major scams that, let's face it, just us 99 percenters, we just don't need to know about. Here's the scoop. In all but name, the G8 meeting represents a global government operations meeting. Once ratified, Bilderberg's 2013 agenda passes on to the G8 heads of state, with the likes of Barack Obama, Vladimir Putin in attendance to then okay it. Here's time for our Asshole of the Week, and this week it goes to 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Edith Jones, blatant racist. This week, the NAACP, the Texas Civil Rights Project, and the Mexican Capital Legal Assistance Program filed a complaint of judicial misconduct against the Ronald Reagan-appointed 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Edith Jones, blatant racist. The complaint alleges that 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeal Judge Edith Jones, blatant racist, violated the judicial code requirement that judges remain impartial and avoid damaging public confidence in the judiciary. In other words, don't be racist. Apparently, this needs to be said to 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Edith Jones, blatant racist. Systematic racism exists. Institutionalized racism is fucking real. It is insane for anyone, let alone a federal judge, to think that certain ethnicities are predisposed to crime. That's because they're not. So, for eating and shitting through the same pie hole, you, 5th U.S. Circuit Court of Appeals Judge Edith Jones, blatant racist, are Hippie TV News and Stuff's Asshole of the Week. That's it for this week. I'd like to thank the doc. And please check out worldwidehippies.com each day for more news and stuff, and pass the stuff around. And you will see the doc and myself, Winston Smith, right here next week.